So, welcome to the Meaty Monday for this week. Just so you guys know, there might be a second video coming out later this week talking about another game, but this was about to be the main game that has been sucking up all of my stream playtime for the last week. Multiversus. So this is a video talking about how Multiversus relaunch has gone so far. I mean, the game is definitely more fun than it used to be. I, like many people, had my sort of concerns that the game looked a lot slower than it used to. When the game started releasing footage again, it did look like it had slowed down quite a bit. But I am happy to say that that is one of the best things the game has added. Multiversus at launch was a very spammy game, and I still think to an extent it is. But now it is much more of a whiff punishy game, which if you're playing a game that has no shields, no grab, entirely built around dashes, dodges, your spacings, and movement, the game needs to be one of the most whiff punish intensive games on the market. And I think they've done a great job in terms of transitioning a lot of the more spammy characters into a bit more strategic character. Let's talk about the battle pass, monetization, and progression as a whole in this game. So when Multiversus first launched, there were realistically 3 currencies in the game. You had fighter unlock tokens that had to be purchased with like special bundles for the game. You had Gleamium, which was the premium currency, and you had gold, which you used to unlock fighters, perks, all sorts of stuff. So now the game has 4 currencies, right? You've got Gleamium, character, perk, and prestige. I think some of the gold was transitioned into perk and prestige currency, probably also a bit into character currency. I mean, this really isn't that big of a deal to have this many types of currencies in the game. I do remember when the game launched and I didn't want to spend any gold on unlocking perks for characters because I wanted to save it up for character unlocks. So having it split apart is a bit better. The problem arises with how old players got access to these things. Like, prestige currency can be used in this sort of prestige store shop. But like, let's say I want the Shazam ring out, I can use my prestige to get it. But the only way you get prestige is by purchasing skins, basically. You can purchase skins or you can unlock skins through the game, which is fine when there's a lot of skins you can unlock throughout the game, but it kind of means that this free sort of reward currency you should be getting by leveling up characters is more realistically currency that whales get for spending a lot of money on the game. So this shop quickly turns into a free-to-play player's dream where you get a bunch of skins and announcer packs and things that you otherwise wouldn't have. Instead, now this is an area for people who spend a shitload of money on the game to get bonus skins for free. The mission system. One of my biggest problems with Multiversus when it first launched is it was a little bit too respectful of my time. Can't really grind Multiversus. Kind of a you get on, you do your dailies, you do your weeklies, and then you get off type of game. It's really good for people who have lives. That doesn't apply to me. I want to keep playing your game and get rewarded for it, and this game does not do a good job of doing it. As far as fighting game monetization goes, this is a very fair game. As far as free-to-play monetization goes, this is kind of head scratcher. The longer you keep people in your game, the more likely they are to fall in love with it, the more likely they are to spend money. The grind currently in this game centers around none of this shit and all of these other modes instead, which we'll talk about later. I do think having daily and weekly like login bonuses seem like a great thing. I hope it doesn't just go for the first week and also isn't just this one daily login trial. But these don't have to be like Gleamium and skins and stuff. They can just be fighter unlock points. They're currently running this event called the Power Pledge Drive, which is a really good way to get a shitload of fighter unlock points and a bit of Gleamium. And if you are a beta player, you can just go through your entire cast of level 0 characters because it reset the levels. Just level them all up to level 1 and farm this out within an afternoon. But the problem here is that all of this progression is centered around events and missions. The actual fighter points you get from completing a mission, barely any. The XP that you get for fighters in this game also feels really weird. I remember it being a grind to get characters to level 15 in the past, but I remember that it was like 1 to 2, 4 to 5 hour streams. The game feels a lot grindier to get levels on your characters, which is frustrating because grinding a character is really the only way to get fighter currency in the game aside from things like battle pass and missions. This is fine for me because I am not a new player. I mean, hell, I'm only missing 3 characters total after playing a lot of this game this week, because I really only had to unlock Joker and Black Adam for this launch of the game. Problem is, for new players, it's really challenging to unlock characters because you don't have a backlog of characters to use to farm for fighter currency to get new characters. And because of how grindy the character level ups are, it's really difficult to get new characters. So if we ever hit a point where like events and missions and things like that aren't throwing out fighter currency at us, it's gonna become really hard to get into this game. And that's where the store starts to come back in. The game does sell fighters. You can buy any character in this game for 10 bucks or 3,000 of the fighter points. Because the game is so frustrating to grind to unlock new characters, only the most dedicated of players who are starting now are going to be able to get the full roster of characters unlocked. And once new characters start getting added, people who had the game before and already have most of the characters are going to have a backlog of fighter points they'll be able to use to get new characters day one, which I think is a very consumer-friendly thing, but it means that for newer players, it's going to be very grindy, whereas for older players, there's nothing really to grind for. They didn't find a nice little middle ground where it works out for everyone. But that's enough about monetization. Let's talk about the game itself. This game has PvE. Now, PvE in this game is a whole new can of worms. I would highly recommend, if you are a newer player who sees this PvE mode and wants to grind it out, that you do not touch it unless you are doing your PvE daily challenges. See, I've completed an entire PvE set all the way through to get the cauldron thing, because I mistakenly thought, well, if I grind the PvE, it probably gives me like a shitload of fighter currency. And it kinda does. You get a lot of fighter currency from a mission that you get for completing the whole 100 points of a PvE run, but the only rewards you get from doing this are PvE rewards, these gems. The gems don't translate into PvP, so if you're a PvP player, grinding these out does literally nothing for you. Now, there are daily rewards for some of this stuff, but a lot of the time I don't really feel like this is worth it. If the daily rewards were like a guaranteed like 50 to 100 fighter currency, then I think it might be worth to go back and play these regularly. But also a lot of the dots on this are completely contingent on like having the right gems equipped, having the right characters equipped, having the right blah 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 equipped, bringing a friend to suffer through this with you. Which it's like, that's not challenging me as a person, that's just challenging my wallet and my fucking contacts list. That's not that fun. But it's okay that it's not that fun because it's not really for anything. Just save these modes for when you need to do your dailies and then play a new one each time and try and get as many dots as you can. Actually, no, just play the ones with daily rewards and hope the daily rewards sometimes are good. But now for the part you've all been waiting for. How are the characters in this game? I'm mostly gonna hit on characters that I like actually played a bit of. And mind you, these are very early first impressions, but they are built on having played a lot of the beta and alpha of this game. Arya Stark. Arya feels like they kind of solved her. She had a lot of problems in the beta where like she was completely contingent on like kill setups. So if the kill setups didn't work because Balance said, hey, she's getting them too frequently, she was kind of just fucked. Now she's a bit more consistent, which makes her a lot more fun. But it also feels like her kill setups are a little bit less strong, but also everyone has kill setups. You are barely ever living past 100 in this game. Anyways, fuck Banana Guard. This character just feels really silly. All of his buttons feel really safe. He doesn't really seem to have any areas he struggles in. He can kill off the top, he can kill off the side. He isn't that light. Crazy disjoints. It's just kind of annoying in general. I think this character needs some tuning, but also, don't really care that much if there's a character who's day one kind of broken. I feel like he'll probably end up balanced out relatively quickly and won't be that oppressive. Also, I do think there's a fair number of characters in the game that could beat him. He's not like an unbeatable opponent. That's not what I'm trying to say. Batman. Batman still feels very feast or famine. It could just be that I'm too used to beta Batman, so I'm not really used to this new Batman at all yet. But almost all of his setups are completely contingent on Batarang. And because they're all contingent on Batarang, there are some really rough matchups where characters can break Batarang where he just kind of loses. I feel like Batarang is a cool resource, but it's always kind of frustrated me how much Batman relies on it compared to a lot of the rest of the cast, where projectiles are just sort of an additive benefit or a core benefit and are balanced accordingly. Batarang has always felt kinda weird. Black Adam, I don't have that much to say on him because I just unlocked him the other night, so I'll probably come back to this and fill this out later when I have more thoughts on him, or make a dedicated video to him, we'll see. Bugs. Bugs is still kind of as infuriating as he's always been, but he's not nearly as oppressive as he used to be. The options are a lot slower, and as a whole the game is a lot slower, so his big spammy projectiles are not quite as frustrating to deal with. Most of your matchup experience against bugs from the alpha and beta will carry over 1-to-1, so if you already figured out the matchup pretty well on your character, it's the same here, but it's a little bit less punishing. The character who doesn't really feel any less punishing is Finn. Finn feels very, very spammy still. I haven't played a lot of Finn because I've never enjoyed playing Finn. Played into a lot of Finns, and they play exactly the same way they did in the beta and the alpha in this game, whereas most other characters have to play a bit more safe. Finn's a very disjoint heavy character, so he wasn't doing the most like dash jumps, so he's not super resource intensive, which kind of just means he gets to just spam the whole time. Backpack is still ridiculously hard to challenge in any ways, and also very hard to dodge through or dodge away from. This character is weird. He feels very strong, but he also feels kinda left behind design-wise. Garnet was the only launch roster character that like I never purchased in Multiversus because she was always available, and I also just didn't find her that fun to play. So I'm not the person to look to for Garnet tips. But I will say that fighting Garnet, she does feel very similar to how she used to feel. The problem with talking about Garnet or characters that I'm not a big fan of playing is that the people who play them kind of have a bit of a reputation in Multiversus. And the Garnet players that play her still are the same Garnet players that used to play her, which is to say, not very bright. They're going to do a lot of spamming, and they're going to show up a lot on ladder, and probably not that much in ranked. Good Garnets are still fucking scary though, so I'll give them that. Gizmo. Gizmo is weird. I feel like Gizmo can kind of be a bit of a demon, but he's so setup dependent that for I think the majority of players in this game, he is just kind of be there. He's very small and very light and very setup oriented, very spammy, so he's probably going to be pretty hated at the top tiers of the game, whereas in the lower and mid tiers of like ranks and stuff, he's going to be seen as an absolute throw pick. Harley Quinn is still fucking busted. Her setups and stuff are insane, her bomb confirms are insane, her ladder combos are insane, she can kill off the top really well on pretty much every map. And she's just about as fun as she's always been. She's a lot less spammy than she used to be, but has a lot more options in terms of combos, which is really fun. And for the most part, most of these characters are, which is really good to see. Iron Giant feels the exact fucking same. He already was slow as shit, so the game slowing down doesn't really affect him that much. He still gets comboed like crazy. He still does ridiculous amounts of damage to you when you're comboing him and he has his thorns up. He still gets spiked 15 times in a row off stage at 0 and dies at 0. But I feel like Iron Giant is always kind of a meme character. I don't doubt that there are people who can make him work that play like extremely safe and extremely like pressure focused and less about like actually hitting and comboing stuff. But I do think he's one of the harder characters to make work, especially if you're getting back into the game or getting into the game for the first time. Jake feels fucking terrible, I'm just gonna be honest. I've seen very few Jake players that seem to do well. The few Jake players are majorly just spamming shit out all the time. It might be something where like the Jake mains just need to figure out how to play him in this new game, but for the most part he doesn't feel like he has the sauce anymore. I'm never that scared facing Jake. They have the same 4 scary moves. Aside from that, they kind of just feel like almost like Ganondorf in Smash Bros, where it's like if you know how to respect their moves, they literally can't do anything. They just die. I don't know, this character is weird. Jason is really silly. He's like he's very strong in terms of like pub stomping and noob stomping, but as far as how he goes in terms of like the meta of the game, I think this character is going to be fucking dookie cheek ass. He's really good at like day 1 comboing people. In my first day of playing this game, I beat someone 13-0 on Jason on ladder in just like the quick play 1v1 matches. I don't know, he's a big body, he's a heavy, he's got good kill power, he's got good buttons, but he's also slow as shit and he's combo food. So it's the same thing as all the heavies in this game. You probably don't want to play the super heavy big tank characters for the most part, because there are just better options that don't have a hitbox the size of most maps. LeBron James is still fascinatingly strange character to say when talking about a fighting game, but he's also still a very fun character to play. It's really weird to me that there is just an actual human person from the real world put into this game. But as far as he is to play, he feels very similar to how he used to be. He can be he's very scary and setup focused. Basketball is now just like always an active hitbox, which Took me a while to get used to. I kept expecting there were like safe windows to approach where it's like bouncing back. But honestly, from a game design perspective, is a lot more intuitive for newer players. So once that switch sort of flicked in my head, I feel like I got the matchup a lot more. He's still extremely scary with a basketball, kinda ass without one. Really scary if someone knows how to combo and get one back. There are times where you can see a LeBron player with like 4 or 5 basketballs up at the same time, which like, that's fucking scary. But you know, he's fun. He's unique. Marvin the Martian, again, this is a character I didn't unlock. So I don't know what we'll do for gameplay for this one. Marvin is something. I don't doubt that like Marvin players could be very scary if they actually figured out their kit, but a lot of people just seem to be sort of picking him and feeding their brains out. He also, the way that Marvin says Kryptonian and Amazonian feel like slurs. I don't know how to describe it. The way that he shouts it out, it rubs me the wrong way. Morty feels way less annoying than he used to be. I don't know if he's worse. He definitely feels a little worse than he did the last time I played the game. He actually has a voice actor now. That voice actor isn't Justin Roiland, so that's cool. But now you are annoyed at things the Morty voice actor is actually saying instead of at things that were clipped out of Rick and Morty for this character. So like, the quality is a little bit higher, but he's still just as fucking annoying because these characters are non-stop yappers. It's very spammy, kind of complicated, but really not that much. Good Mortys are still terrifying, but like, I think it is going to take a while for people to figure out how to play him. For the most part, people playing Morty are usually high as shit and just spamming projectiles the whole game, so they're usually a pretty free match. Rain Dog, I got nothing to say about this character. I haven't seen anyone play this character. I don't think I'm ever going to see anyone play this character. It's just kind of a boring support character. I remember being like sort of surprised at how fun they were in beta, but I literally haven't seen anyone playing them. So my bet is they're not clicking with people. I don't know how good they are. I don't know how bad they are. I'd assume they're about the same of being like pretty decent or maybe a little bit good, but I got nothing, man. Rick, same thing as Morty. He's more annoying now, but he's more annoying in a way that feels less cheap, so that's cool. Still pretty spammy. Still gonna be a character that it takes people a while to figure out. I think Rick will probably take a little bit less time to figure out than Morty will, because there's less like nade stuff and setups with Rick. He's much more straightforward. He just has very unintuitive. In general, I think both of them flow a lot better than they did in the beta. They feel less confusing, but that could also just be matchup knowledge from me, so I don't know. Shaggy feels fucking crazy. Like, Shaggy has always felt really good, but he feels really good now. Which is fun, because he's kind of like the Captain Falcon or Mario of this game. Very simplistic, has a lot of options, has some cool mechanics, has a limit, as he goes fucking Super Saiyan. I do kind of dislike that element of his kit just from like a basic game design perspective. I'd prefer if Shaggy was just designed around like Shaggy as opposed to a shitty meme from 2019. But that's just me. Steven Universe is fucking scary. Getting put in the blender by this dude, especially in twos when he like puts up a platform above you and then starts comboing you off it. Terrifying. The Watermelon Steven still feels just as terrible as it's always felt. Which is weird to me that that wasn't a portion of his kit that was like reworked. I mean, hell, imagine if it was like an Ice Climbers type thing where he like someone that just like copies his moves and could use it to combo you or something. I don't know. Personally, Steven's always felt like a bit of a missed opportunity. He's like weirdly tanky, but he's also really small and also has okay buttons and okay projectiles, but is also a demon once he gets set up. So I just don't know what they do with this character. I feel like probably right now is about as good as he's gonna get. I don't know if there are gonna be a lot of people picking him up. We'll see. Stripe. Stripe is another character I haven't really played. I've seen a few Stripe players. He seems fine. I don't have much that's actually helpful to say on this. Superman. Actually kind of feel like Superman lost a lot in the transition from beta to release of this game. Superman was one of the most like dash jump intensive characters out there because he's just so slow. A lot of Superman players are still just as spammy as they've always been, but actually playing Superman feels a lot worse in this game than it used to feel. Most of the characters in this game, I don't really feel the transition from beta to full release of this game, but on Superman, I really do. He's not bad by any means, he just feels a lot clunkier to play. He's also just as annoying as he's always been, which means I feel like more people are gonna fall into that annoying playstyle with Superman as opposed to the more fun style. Taz, I barely ever see any Taz players. I was joking on stream that I was probably the best Taz player in the world because I was the only Taz player I'd ever seen win a game. This character feels kinda dookie ass cheeks. He's small, he's not really got that great of buttons. Tornado is kind of cheeks now, which, like, I know that Tornado was kind of ruining people in the beta of this game, but he feels really shit without it. In serious need of some help, in my opinion. The Joker. Joker is probably one of the most fun new characters in this game. He feels very similar to both Harley and Batman, where he's got, like, strong projectiles, but the majority of his kit is just built around laddering the shit out of you. His combo game is pretty insane. He feels like a great representation of the Joker in this game. And also just having more villains in this game is really nice. Tom and Jerry, they feel just as crazy as they've always felt. Jerry Shot is still the best projectile in the game, hands down. Their combos are still devious, their projectile spam is still devious, they are insane. But you know who isn't devious? Velma. Velma blows ass. You know, I'm not even gonna bother crying about this. I'm glad this character sucks. She was annoying as shit, so spammy, so obnoxious. I don't ever want to see her strong again unless they, like, completely rework her character. So for Tom and Jerry, I'm fine with them staying strong. They are very cool and very fun to play into and play as. For Velma, I don't mind if this character is unplayable for the rest of this game. And Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman feels like the best tank in this game. It's either Wonder Woman or Steven. I think there's something to be said about heavier, slower, but smaller characters in these types of games. So while Wonder Woman is small and relatively quick with a fairly strong disjoint and good armor, she's also small enough to not get farmed by people for most of the game, which lets her do what she wants to do. I almost feel as if the tank role needs like a split, because some of these characters aren't tanks, they're fucking walls. Like Jason and Iron Giant compared to Wonder Woman is night and day. One of these characters can tank a lot of damage, deal a lot of damage, combo the shit out of you, and is small and quick. The other two of these characters get comboed until they accidentally hit a move and win. I truly think, like, Wonder Woman is probably one of the best characters in this game right now. Like, she is really fucking good. Also, her kit just flows really well, which is nice. Kind of what I was talking about with the Superman stuff is, like, I played a lot more Superman than I played Wonder Woman in beta of this game. I felt like I was doing what I wanted on Wonder Woman within the first game of playing her, whereas on Superman, it took me a long fucking time to even feel like I was doing my basic bread and butters. So yeah, I feel like for the most part, a lot of the characters with strong ground games and strong air games stayed strong from the transition from beta to the release, but a lot of the characters that were very, like, dash reliant or very big or very clunky, spammy, or centered around one thing tended to not make the transition as well as others. For the most part, I think all of the characters are in a much more healthy state, which is much more important than their balanced state. But yeah, no, I think the characters themselves are actually good. Now we gotta talk about game modes in the game. In both 2v2 and 1v1, I feel like the game feels just as good as it's always felt. Having another stock in 1v1 is great. In the training range, I just have one thing to say. Let us play characters in training range that we don't have unlocked. With how grindy the game is, you would immediately get points from the fan base of this game if you let the characters be free to play in the training mode. Almost every other game does this, because it doesn't make sense to ask someone to spend $10 on a character that they might think feels like shit to play. This was in the alpha and beta of the game, so why is it not in full release? It's just greed, it shouldn't be that way. I've also heard people saying that for local play too, and while I think that would be nice, I don't think that's necessary. Because this is, at the end of the day, a fighting game, and, like, they do have to make money, and the main way they're gonna make money is off of character sales. And also there's the final thing of, why the fuck is rank not in the game? Did we not learn our lesson? Look, this could age terribly. If the rank system comes out within the first season of the game, I don't care. That's fine. This will just be a weird, unique thing. But we didn't have the rank system in the base game for, I want to say, almost a year. By the time I stopped playing, there still wasn't a rank system in the game, and I played that game longer than most. So I really, truly, seriously hope that that is not the case with this game. The netcode of the game is infinitely better. I barely ever feel lag. It's like once every 4 games for like a split second, and then it's good. But I think we're going to finish this off by talking about the maps in the game. Batcave is good. Treefort 2 is good. Trophy's Edge 2v2 good. Both Haunted Mansions I think feel fine. Throne Room feels fine. Romulans is fine aside from it's a fucking Rick and Morty stage. The quartz ceilings kind of lead to you taking like 100 damage because you accidentally jumped under the basketball hoop, which can feel a little bullshit. Sky arenas are fine. Houndsville is fine with hazards off because then it's just a moving platform. With hazards on, Mojo Jojo is fucking annoying. He has a really cool laser beam that he barely ever does, so the first time you get hit by that, you will die. What the fuck?
What the?
He's never hit that one before. What the? Imagine losing your set to the fucking Eggman piss beam. No, we gotta let them have that one run back. That was outrageous.
I ain't never seen Mojo Jojo do that one before.
Dexter's Lab 1, terrible. Dog shit map. Probably one of the worst in the game. Dexter's Lab 2 is fine. It's just the fucking Wario map from Smash Ultimate. Like, you kill people really early on this one. I think if I were to pick the worst map in the game, it would have to be, actually, honest to God, Tree Fort. This map blows so hard. Its ceiling is so fucking high that it makes the game just never fucking end. That or Dexter's Laboratory. The rest of them I'm not that mad to see. River's Edge 2 does kind of blow if you find projectile characters. Also, because of the fact that Comp isn't out yet, we don't know whether or not Comp lets you switch characters, but for the base game you can't switch characters, which I actually think is a good change. In competitive though, counter picking and stage picking and all that stuff needs to be a feature. That's a core tenet of fighting games. It needs to be there. And I keep saying that this will be the last thing, but this one really will be the last thing. The Agent Smith unlock. This shit blows. You have to beat the final boss at the end of every tier of the story missions, but you can only do it once. You can't repeat it. I think if it was repeatable, but you had to do one of them each day, it would still encourage you to grind out the event missions. But my brother in Christ, you have to get to tier 20 to get Agent Smith. And I mean, there's only like 5 of these, and you can only play the first 2 difficulties of each rift unless you grind out your gem levels to get the 3rd and 4th difficulty tiers, which means grinding out your gems for all 5 of these. Playing through the same tracks for these each 4 times. And all of that is to get Agent Smith early. That is so not worth it. And they need to change that. Just make it so that every day or every week you can repeat the boss battles and get them all back. It would still encourage you to grind it, but realistically you could just do, what, 5 weeks of grinding as opposed to endless grinding all the time, which is what it is currently. Anyways, I feel like the game is in a lot better of a spot. It has a lot brighter future ahead of it, and I'm excited to see where this game goes in the future. See you all next time.
Ain't nothing like a funky beat.